Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's podcast, I wanted to continue where we left off, speaking about E&Y's metrics. And as we spoke about before, E&Y measures their global results along 4 metrics determined based on factors that they got from the UN, the World Economic Forum, and an inclusive capitalism coalition that they recently joined. And the 4 metrics that E&Y developed from these organizations focus on people, clients, society, and revenue and growth. The first metric that we're going to cover is people. We'll be covering the other metrics in other podcast episodes. So how does E&Y measure their impact with people based on their 2020 global report? The first way they do this, according to their self-mandated metrics, is through measuring an engaged workforce. And they measure how engaged their workforce is through a people survey. And it is called the Global People Survey. And they have multiple graphics about this survey. They show how total participants in the survey have gone up, and so have the percentage of participants. However, it looks like the percentage of participants might go down in the future years based on the trends in the graphics. And then E&Y in another graphic shows the results of the survey. And the results of the survey measure 5 categories. They measure overall engagement, whether someone is proud to work at E&Y, whether an employee would recommend E&Y to someone else, whether an employee is satisfied with E&Y, and whether an employee is committed to E&Y. And all of the Big Four have similar surveys to E&Y's, and they usually call it the Global People Survey or Global Pulse Survey or something similar to that. But the bad thing is E&Y shows this, and 3 out of the 5 categories were headed downward, which isn't good for E&Y. And the only 2 that were headed up were people's satisfaction with E&Y and people that would recommend E&Y. In other words, people aren't proud to work at E&Y. They are becoming more disengaged and aren't committed to E&Y. And the part about being committed to E&Y actually seems to be dropping off a cliff. So this means that people plan to leave E&Y very soon. So even though they're being more open and honest with their surveys, they aren't necessarily positive for E&Y except for a couple categories. Next up, E&Y measured the impact with people by showing their brand strength with recruits. And they show that among business students, they are ranked as the top Big Four accounting firm. And I'm not sure this is true. It just doesn't seem right to me because E&Y is the 3rd largest Big Four accounting firm, and they're not really known for being the best, but who knows? Let me know in the comments on YouTube what you think. But the reason I think this happened is because E&Y was asking the questions, and the kids wanted a job with E&Y, so they made it seem like E&Y is their number 1 choice. Another interesting thing they show here in this people section is the number of people they hired over the years. And they show applicants per year and people hired per year from 2018 to 2020. Now in 2018, they had 1.8 million applicants and they hired 62,000 of those applicants. In 2019, they had 2.2 million applicants and they hired just about 70,000 of them. And in 2020, they had 2 million applicants and they hired 76.7 thousand employees, which is pretty good, being that this wasn't the best year ever. But they probably would have hired a lot more if it wasn't for COVID. And another interesting thing here is that E&Y has a chart that shows promotions across the firm over the years. And this chart shows promotions going up over time, which is good for young people. If you're just joining the firm, then you stand a good chance of getting a promotion in future years. And that's one thing the Big Four accounting firms are known for, is giving promotions and giving them frequently. But something that's not good in this graphic is that partner promotions have decreased significantly in 2020, obviously most likely due to COVID. And they also try to show the percentage of partners that are diverse. They try to show the percentage of partners that are women and are from emerging markets. And those numbers do not appear good. They appear to be stagnating. But the partner promotions were 747 in 2018, 758 in 2019, and 600 in 2020. And the decrease in partner promotions, I believe, will continue into 2021. I don't think you'll see it jump above 700 unless the economy really flips around. But I believe this decrease is going to continue downward. And then E&Y goes on to show leadership groups by gender. And they're obviously trying to do this as part of these global standards to show how they're working on diversity, especially after the George Floyd protests and social justice movements across the world. The only thing is it doesn't appear very good for E&Y. It shows various leadership groups throughout the firm by gender. And this doesn't paint E&Y in a good light because it just shows that men are the majority of leadership positions and the number isn't really changing. But maybe E&Y is establishing this graphic and these metrics now to show how they improve over time. However, I'm not confident in that because I know the big four accounting firms have been harping on these metrics for at least a decade now. So E&Y, by adopting these metrics, is trying to show how they care about their people and how they're working on social justice metrics. But it remains to be seen if they will improve. But at least we're getting more transparency here as the Big Four try to adapt to new ESG standards. And so we'll just have to see how they perform in future years. But to get the other metrics of E&Y and how they're changing their metrics based on these global standards, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Support us through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes to this podcast. And if you can't financially support us, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video on our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.